What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of the GZ Chop Shop podcast. I'm your host, Projektitachi, joined by my good friend and co-host, War Nurse. And this week, we need to talk about IGN. And it's something we've actually been discussing for a long time amongst ourselves. But I think at this point, it's official that they have crossed the point of no return, and they've fallen from grace of where they started to whatever it is today, and we need to talk about it. And Warner's he's geared up.
Woo! IGN has become the same thing in the gaming industry that commentary news is in like the political world. Like, you can just tell that they're very biased, and quite honestly, these articles have been just getting written more and more poorly over time. And on top of that, the scores, the ratings that they're giving movies and games and animes are not consistently matching up. Like, they don't make sense anymore. A big example of this is something recent. We all remember Concord, right? Concord. Yep. What score did Concord get?
7.
If you guys aren't familiar with the score rating system for IGN, a 7 is considered good. 7 is good. So they rated Concord a 7, which is good for a game that was almost immediately shut down within a couple of weeks for how bad it was. And then, not even a few weeks later, I think maybe a couple months later, I think, the studio was shut down and Sony doesn't want anything to do with them anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. That same IGN turned around last month and gives Sparking Zero a 7. So you gave Concord a 7, and we just discussed how horrible they did and the outcome of that. And then you give Sparking Zero a 7.
Which has topped sales of almost every fighter that has dropped this year.
Right. And like, we all, as popular as the game is for good reason, we all have, I think, a lot of the same like complaints about the game. I think we all agree that rank is unnecessary for the game. Yeah. There's some ridiculousness, but overall, the game, we can all agree is fun. It's good. It's a good game. I'm not saying that 7 is not appropriate for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. What I'm saying is there's inconsistency with their rating and they're not matching up, which tells me that there's bias. It also tells me when I read these articles that, you know, a lot of these authors, if you click on their names, it gives you their background, and a lot of them are like judges for Crunchyroll for the anime awards, stuff like that. And it's hard for me to believe, because I don't know about you guys, but when especially as of recently, this past year or so, when I read these articles, these articles are written in a way that they don't tell me you actually know what you're talking about. They're written vaguely, as if you played a demo for an hour that had small pieces of said game, or you skimmed a movie, or you watched a couple of episodes of an anime, and then you went and wrote an article that's on par with a 5th grader following instructions in creative writing. So for that, personally, I give IGN a resounding 4, which is bad. I'm rating IGN now a 4. For inconsistency, poor writing skills, I'm beyond flabbergasted here. Now, what cracks me up is games like, just kind of going back a little bit, is games like Alien Isolation. I think most people agree that it's considered one of the best Alien games in that franchise. 5.9 is what IGN gave that game.
I didn't even realize it was that low.
But then they turn, yeah. I had to like Google it when someone mentioned it. I was like, ain't no way that they would give, like, that game's, everyone agrees, right? And then they turn around and give Doom, the 2016 one, a 7.1, which is considered good.
Yeah.
But then they turn around and give Fortnite a 9.6. What they're doing is they're not really basing any of the reviews off if whether or not something is good or faithful, enjoyable. They're basing it off of, is it popular? And from where I'm standing, a lot of the time it seems like it's some of the bias comes in is it an American game? Because that not always. There are different authors, and I think some of the authors are good. There are some articles I'll read from IGN that are I'm like, that's a good article, and I agree. The game was the game was great, the game wasn't that great, or anime or whatever. But there's definitely a handful of these journalists and these writers that I'm convinced that they're frauds. Like they're not really playing these games. They're not really watching these shows or movies. They're just skimming it or playing a demo and then making a vague article to make it sound like they're talking about something. They know what they're talking about. And then they just throw it out there to meet a quota or whatever. And then they carry on with their life, not realizing that it's actually impacting the gaming industry and potentially good games versus bad games and what the norm is in gaming. So November 7th, Overlord came out. Now, a lot of the sites will say November 8th, but the preview, like the pre-showing, was last night, November 7th. And thanks to Yuli, our good friend Yuli, I saw the rating. IGN had already put out a rating for this show or this movie. And they rated Overlord, the Holy Kingdom, they rated it 4. Now, I don't know if you guys know how bad something has to be a 4. As a matter of fact, the word bad is written under the number 4. So I'm sure like most people, when you're looking forward to something and you see a review that's really bad, whether you meant to or not, before you go see said movie, you're already like, man, I don't want it to suck. I was really looking forward to this. So I kind of went through that for a second. I was like, damn it. Like, I hope this movie doesn't suck. Like I was already kind of like bummed out, like, man. So I went in there and I was like, as much as I enjoy Overlord, I was like, I'm gonna see how much of this article is true. Cause I read the whole article. And I was like, I'm gonna try not to be biased, and I'm gonna try to watch this movie and I'm gonna critique it. I'm gonna see how faithful this movie is to Overlord. And hang on, I got the novels, motherfuckers.
I was gonna say you're not just an anime fan.
Okay, every single one of them that's available, I've read them. Okay, so when I go to see this movie, I'm excited because I already know what's gonna happen, and I'm looking forward to seeing it come to life. So we're gonna go over this article. We're gonna have some fun.
Oh man.
Okay, so you guys just bear with me here. Okay, I'm gonna scroll on up. Okay, so it starts off like most articles with any movie adaptation, a long-running anime series. There are always concerns about whether or not the limited runtime will do the source material justice. Unfortunately, Overlord, the Sacred Kingdom, fails in that regard. Real quick, the movie's called Sacred Kingdom. The novel's called The Paladin of the Sacred Kingdom, and sometimes the part of the continent they're in, the region, is called the Holy Kingdom. So you might hear me mixing those up, but that's why. So unfortunately, Overlord, the Sacred Kingdom, fails in that regard. First paragraph, this person is saying, IGN is saying, the Sacred Kingdom fails with its limited runtime of 2 hours and 12 minutes, by the way.
Limited?
To do the source material justice. This first little part of this paragraph here already tells me that he did not read the light novel at all. He is lying right here. I'm calling them out right here. You're going to make this statement that a limited runtime, 2 hours and 15 minutes is not a limited runtime, by the way. Doesn't do the source material justice. Guys, like most animes and most anime movies, every single piece of the manga or the light novel is typically not going to be in the anime. We all know this, and we're all, for the most part, okay with it. So with that said, yes, the movie does leave out a small handful of scenes, but the scenes that they leave out, not only does it not really, it doesn't affect the plot or the understanding of the movie, having not read the novel, but it doesn't change the context of what you're watching, and it doesn't hurt the movie. So minor spoilers ahead, guys. Okay, just to be clear, I don't want to spoil the movie if you guys haven't read the light novel and you haven't seen the movie. When the Holy Kingdom, the Sacred Kingdom, goes to the Sorcerer Kingdom to ask for aid, to call Gondor for aid, is what they're doing. They need help. There is a scene that's missing from the movie that's in the book, and it's when our main character, Nia, because this movie is not about Ainz. It's not about the Guardians. They're in it, and we're seeing what they're doing, but it's not about specifically them. It's about Sacred Kingdom, and it's about Nia. There's a scene where Nia is with the rest of the Holy Order, right? And Ainz is like, I can't help you right now. You might have to wait, 3 years to get what you want. He's, we all know Ainz is BSing them and playing playing with them and stuff. But he's given them, the runaround. So Nia stands up and she says some words, makes a speech, and then asks for help, and basically turns it around and shortens the length of time. And Ainz says he'll think about it. That scene that I just kind of briefly summarized, I didn't go into too much detail, gets explained immediately. The scene didn't need to exist in the movie, because immediately after they get there and it shows them meeting Ainz Algon, and then the scene switches back to, oh, why did you say that, Nia? And they're kind of arguing why she stood up and said that, but you didn't see that scene because it's not in the movie. But it's being explained right there. There was no reason for it to be in the movie when it comes to budget costs and all that stuff. So those are the kind of scenes that are missing from the movie, but are also explained in decent enough detail in the movie that there was no reason for it to be there. I would have liked to see that scene, but there was no reason for it to be there. And I'm okay with that. And moving on. Guy obviously didn't read the light novel, even though he suggests here that he did. It is faithful to the book, guys. It is very faithful to the book.
I will say too, just at a glance of the article myself here, there's something he puts that it makes me wonder. Did he actually read it? Because it says, that said, being familiar with Overlord doesn't make the Sacred Kingdom any more enjoyable.
Yes, I was actually going to get to that part. So basically what I just talked about, it's actually quite the opposite. Having read the light novel makes the movie even more enjoyable. And not having read the light novel, again, the certain scenes that are gone, you're not losing out on context of any situations, because they are explained if you're paying attention to the movie and you've actually watched the anime series and listened to what the characters have had to say. So we're gonna scroll a little bit down here. The Sacred Kingdom makes me question why Madhouse went this route with Overlord. This long dragging cycle of political plotting and scheming might have played out better with a season or a handful of special episodes. And that's right before what the sentence you just said. Those unfamiliar with Overlord lore will probably get lost. No. Yes, I did read the light novel, but again, if you watch the movie and you listen, you will hear. Also, this movie and these two books, they're not about Ainz Algon. They're not about the Guardians. Yes, we are seeing their plotting and their scheming in the background, but what we're seeing in this part of this universe is what the Sorcerer Kingdom and Ainz Algon looks like from the eyes of people, the common man and woman who do not know Ainz Algon, and they do not know the Sorcerer Kingdom. All they know is what they've heard. And they've heard that he's a conqueror, that he's the undead. But as the movie goes on, they come to realize that, or some of the characters, especially Nia, come to realize that even if he's faking, even if we know that Ainz, to some extent, he's plotting and scheming, we know that Nia knows that Ainz isn't fully an evil creature. And another thing that I don't think people are grasping in the anime or this movie is we see the awful things that the Guardians, some of the Guardians and Ainz Algon do. A big one was when those adventure teams or those mercenary teams came into Nazarick, right? And I think it was it season 3 or season 4? I think it was season 3. And they go and they go look for treasure, and then he slaughters all of them. And as a matter of fact, at the end of that, there was a big reason why people didn't like Ainz anymore, because he ended up killing.
Included.
Yeah, he ended up like slaughtering these people that didn't want to be there. They were terrified. But what we learn is that the humans in this world are not really any better. So what's brought into our view in this movie, and it's what I loved about this movie, is this movie is actually an ethical dilemma. This movie makes you question and ask yourself, what is justice and what is not justice? What is good? What is evil? What is right? What is wrong? We see that in the movie when some of the creatures have children strapped to the front of their bodies. And there's another scene where a creature, I think it's a goat man, is holding a child up on top of this big wall, this giant rock wall that the Holy Kingdom, the Sacred Kingdom, is trying to push through. And he's like, if you come any closer, I'll hurt this child. And Ainz Algon is there, and he gives advice to Remedios, and he says, if you let them use hostages, they're just going to use hostages again and again. And then it goes through this whole thing, and then Ainz does it himself and just obliterates that whole wall. Kill one for the many, basically. So there's a lot of moments like that in the movie and in the novel that bring about ethical dilemmas. What would you do in that situation? And are these paladins really good? The characters in this show and in the novel, they use there's a karmic system in play, and it's suggested that the paladins are actually like good karmic evil, which sounds weird, but they're evil, but they're good. I think it's called like evil justice or something, or evil karmic justice or something. I forget the term for it that's in the book. But you get the idea. So like, again, obviously this guy doesn't know anything about Overlord. He didn't read the novels, and it's so far, it just looks like he didn't even, did he even watch the anime? Did he even pay attention? Because again, there are things missing from the manga, but if you listen closely, you will catch on to things, and things will be explained that are necessary to be explained. We scrolled. What's that?
I was going to say too, I also noticed an example that he used, coming back to what you said, them being picky on what's popular over what's good. And within that, same paragraph you're talking about, right, in one of his sentences, it says, with successes like Demon Slayer, super popular, the Mugen Train movie, and Dragon Ball Superhero, another popular, super popular anime, he basically was comparing it to those two juggernaut, anime movies, which I'm assuming if you go look at the ratings for either one of them, they're going to be probably super high because they're exceedingly popular. Overlord is popular, but it's niche popular. And it just plays into what you were saying earlier about how if it's not overly popular, they're not going to give it a fair rating, because the Overlord fans are probably not going to be as openly vocal. They're like we're being openly vocal about it and talking about it on the podcast. But I think the people who enjoy Overlord are a bit more mature. So they're probably going to go on Reddit and discuss it among themselves. They're not going to make a big stink about it. And IGN knows that. And because it's not overly popular, they're not as scared of the fandom. Could you imagine them panning Demon Slayer and Dragon Ball the same exact way? Dragon Ball on its own, the exact same way.
Right. Well, and this comes back to inconsistency again. So just as they rated games like Concord a 7, which is good according to IGN's own rating system, and then they turn around and rate other games the same, even though Concord failed, like that level of inconsistency in the rating and writing. We see that in this article when they mention Demon Slayer and Dragon Ball, because those are action, 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 action. Go, 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 go. So this author is just exacerbating a huge problem in the new generation of anime fans, which is if you don't have my attention immediately and I'm not seeing flashy, flashy stuff and lots of colors and explosions the entire time, then this anime therefore is bad.
Yeah.
Because I can't do, I'm sorry, but there are new anime fans that are so annoying, and this guy is not helping. He's adding to that mindset that if you don't have constant fighting and flashing, an anime is bad. So I'm going to carry on this here. So I'm going to scroll down. Madhouse brings Overlord's signature gruesome horror to the Sacred Kingdom alongside some awkward 3D animation whenever larger battles play out. Now, I will admit this. There's moments in the anime, especially the 4th season, where sometimes the CGI is almost as crappy. Now, I don't say crappy, but just like you remember what the Berserk reboot, the CGI on that, like that, like it just there's a few moments in the anime that they do that, and I'm just not for it. But they don't. There is CGI in the movie, but it's not that bad. It's decent and it's far and few between. Overall, the animation is actually pretty good. You can tell that there was a lot of hand-drawn moments mixed in with CGI, but it looks good and it looks crisp for the most part. So this, I agree with slightly when it comes to the anime, like certain parts of the anime, unfortunately. But the movie, no, I don't agree with that in the movie at all. That's just a bad take. Yet another bad take in the article. We continue on here. There are disturbing moments of characters writhing in distress while gore is splayed across the screen, but they don't provide much beyond shock value. Like, oh my God, that sentence right there is so stupid. This is the problem right here that we run into with a lot of anime fans these days, is getting upset with blood and gore or unpleasant scenes that make you feel uncomfortable, and then saying that, oh, well, it's just for shock value and it doesn't add anything to the story. I will explain exactly what this adds to the story and why it's important. Demiurge and a handful of the other guardians, because not all the guardians are cruel or karmic evil. Some of them are actually neutral and actually kind of good. But Demiurge is not one of them. And throughout the anime, in this movie, and in the novel, there are some pretty horrifying scenes. And it paints the picture of just how gruesome and cruel some of the guardians can actually be, all for the sake of strength for Nazarick. It paints a picture of despair. That is why scenes like this exist. It is not for shock value. It is to paint the picture of despair, and there is no hope. And there is a scene, and this, again, I gave a warning about spoilers, but there is a scene where Demiurge is knocked back, and like he flies into a wall. There's a huge explosion, and he craftedly swaps out with an evil Lord Wraith that's like level 84 or something. So everyone who's there fighting Demiurge believes that Demiurge just transformed into that creature. If you know what a Balrog is in Lord of the Rings, it looks like a mini Balrog. Like it is hell incarnate and completely demonic. And then it grabs someone and it uses them as like a doll and just beats them on the ground until their teeth fall out and is bloody. It is shocking, but it's painting a picture of despair. And it's saying that there is no hope and you should all just give up. So just another bad take. Even though we're gonna go down here, even though the Sacred Kingdom consists mostly of battle planning, political tactics, and heart-to-heart discussions, there are still times when the animation shows sign of potential. I don't know what animation showing signs of potential has to do with battle planning, political tactics, and heart-to-heart discussions, but those don't go together. What I'm getting out of this sentence, and I'd like to know what you think too, is when he says there are still times when the animation shows sign of potential, he is saying what we just talked about. Because it's not a fighter anime, because it's not a hack and slash, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball, action, flashy lights, therefore the animation's bad. Again, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just making stuff up that sounds good. And anybody who isn't familiar with Overlord is now not going to go watch this movie or get into it because he wrote such a poor article and gave them such a bad review when quite obviously he has not read the novel, even though he claims to have knowledge of this movie and the show and the novel without using the word novel. And then he goes on a little further down. When Ainz assists Nia in battle, they come upon a leader of the opposing forces who looks like a formidable challenge. As they rush into their duel, the animation very briefly appears to be ramping up to a magnificent clash, only for the movie to cut away from the action yet again. And he's right and wrong, and let me explain. He's right that it does cut away from the scene, or it cuts to the next scene. It doesn't show the battle, and that's because there was not really a battle. Ainz doesn't really fight these guys because they're a waste of his time. It's grasp heart, it's touch of death, it's taking a ring off, and his mere existence around some creatures just kills them or makes them pass out. Like, and again, this movie is not about Ainz. It's not about Ainz Algon. It's about Nia and the perspective of the people there that see that Ainz to them is justice. Later, what appears to be the big battle that closes out this saga is brought down by a dull mix of characters viewing the fight from afar and the combat itself not being visible aside from explosions and spells. Again, because the movie's not about Ainz Algon. It's about the perspective of the Sacred Kingdom, what they're witnessing. And then he goes on to say, verdict, the Sacred Kingdom is more of a footnote to a long-running anime series than it is an entertaining movie experience. Full of story to tell, the limited runtime weakens any investment in the new kingdom and devoted ally it introduces. The arc that inspired the movie receives only a passing mention on the TV show. The Sacred Kingdom's lackluster execution makes the short shrift feel justified. Again, limited runtime is not 2 hours and 12 minutes. And aside from a few scenes, most of the book is in there and it's well explained. And it's, again, the perspective of the Holy Kingdom. I can't believe this guy went on here, tried to say multiple times in the article, tried to suggest that he's a fan, that this isn't true to the source material, limited, like the amount of just poor writing and obviously made up information, biased most likely, is insane in this article. Like, I've seen some bad articles, dude, but this one takes the cake. And to give it a 4, like I can't believe that. Me personally, I would give Overlord a 7 or an 8. It's certainly not the best anime movie I've ever seen, The animation could have been a little better. I liked it, but it could have been better. I would have liked to see some of the scenes in the movie, but I'm not upset about it. I would give it a 7 or 8. So I'm at a loss with this guy. These writers, dude, like, I don't believe for a second that most of these writers are fans. And if they are, they're frauds. They're pretending to be fans, or they're vaguely, again, like I said before, they're playing the game or skimming through a movie and then making a review. It's just getting out of hand, man.
I also want to point out too that Dragon Ball and Demon Slayer both received a 7 on IGN.
Okay.
And before we went to the article, you had listed off, the score tier and 4 being bad and 7, and how they rated some games, putting Concord and Dragon Ball in the same tier. And I say it all comes back to, and this is my personal belief, there aren't any, I think there are articles that surface backing this, but I want to say for me, this is still a hypothetical, but it's a strong hypothetical on my end, that reviews get bought. And for the most part, most people know that's how a lot of reviews work. That's why a lot of avid gamers rely on user scores, because they know reviews are bought.
I wish I could tell the entire gaming industry and anime fandom to stop using IGN, stop going to their website, stop clicking on their stuff and giving them your money by clicking on their stuff. They're a bad company. They're no longer credible to me. They've been losing credibility for quite a while, but this one took the cake, dude. At least other articles I've read have been at least half correct. To write an entire article and the entire article is completely wrong is wild to me.
Yeah. And we all know, like, if Dragon Ball Daima dropped a movie tomorrow and it was a pish posh mash of a mess, it would get a 7.
There's one scene in this movie. I'm really glad they put it in the movie. You don't get a lot of you don't get a reason why, because this movie is about ethical dilemmas and justice and unjust, what is good and evil, and then of course the scheming and plotting. But there's a scene where Remedios is trying to use she goes to use her special ability on her cursed sacred sword, right? And what the sword can do, I think it's like once a day or something. If the other creature is true evil and you come down with that sword and use its ability, it does massive damage, and it'll for the most part KO and do significant damage to the enemy. But the holder also has to be just. She goes and she uses this sword. There's a big flash of light. Nothing happens. The creature takes no damage, and that's it. And then she's confused. She's like, why would this not work? This creature is evil. So it's never directly answered. It's kind of left up to us to sort of pick apart and think about. But to me, it was a great addition to what this movie and what the novels were about. Was that paladin really justice, or was she just a really bad person who was forcing her justice on others and she wasn't as good as she thought she was? Or is Demiurge truly pure evil, or is he simply just doing what he feels he must do for Ainz Outgone because he is their overlord? He is one of the supreme beings. He's not doing it just for the sake of being evil and cruel. We don't really know. I love that scene, and I feel like that could have been added in the article as an interesting note for someone who had watched the movie and read it.
That's a very interesting point too, because you got to think, like, to us, we're thinking, oh, this is ethically wrong, ethically evil, and we're basing that off of our societal standards for where we are.
Yeah, but and it's what I loved most about it. And then just side note, because it's something I really enjoyed about the movie is and in the novel, I'm glad they put this in there. Ainz Outgone You remember in the article, it says in there, it mentions in the article that she's not going to die because that's uh, because Ainz respects her and likes her. Therefore, it takes away from the movie. No, 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 no. Has nothing to do with that. The only reason at first why Nia is kept alive is because Ainz gave her a ton of rune weapons, like imbued with runes, and he's trying to what? What did he get from the dwarves? He wants to create rune technology, make it popular again, and sell it. Dude, like half the movie, like here and there, the decisions made is literally Ainz just trying to upsell rune technology, which is absolutely hilarious. Has nothing to do with dying or living or any of that. Man just wants to sell some rune tech. And I just find that so funny.
Well, we now know that IGN cannot be trusted. And I want to once again point out the fact that you've read the light novels, you've read the manga, you watch the anime, you guys are actual fans, and you go into the lore. Like I can't count how many times you'll come into the chat and be like, I just learned this about Overlord from reading the novel, and so you know what you're talking about. And and Yuli had pointed out that on Reddit, it seems like most of the fans were confused by IGN's rating.
And that's something that we've seen a lot of over the past, I don't know why, like the past year or so, we've seen it more than ever. Is IGN and what their ratings are, it's not lining up at all with the communities. Anime, gaming, whatever, it's not lining up. And people, I think more and more people are starting to like look at IGN with less credibility.
I look at IGN now with as much credibility as user reviews that have less than an hour in a game.
Right. Yep.
I don't. I don't take it seriously at all.
So I think we need I truly think we need to stop clicking on their articles when there's little pop-ups that are like review for whatever. Don't click on them. Don't give them money. When you click on IGN, you're giving them money for every click, and those clicks add up. Stop giving them money.
Yeah. I'm wondering if IGN sends out emails and they're like, "Hey, we see you've got something coming out. If you pay us, we'll give you a good review." And then certain companies are like, well, "No, we want authentic." And they're like, "Oh, we'll give you authentic for."
That's like they had a review come out for the PlayStation 5 Pro, and if you're going to make a review for a console, review the console. Don't review. It's not about the price tag. I think the price tag's a little bit ridiculous. I think a lot of people agree with that. Review the console. Xbox, same thing. Review the console. Don't give it, whatever because you like Microsoft or because, whatever the case is. But these guys are definitely biased, and they're definitely not playing these games, and they're definitely not reading the novels. They're definitely not watching the animes. At least not like they're making it sound like they are. Most of these people are coming across to me like they're just frauds.
Yeah.
And not all. Again, every now and then I'll read an article. I'm like, she knows what she's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. I agree. Good, bad, whatever the case. Even things that I don't want to agree with, but I'm like, yeah, that's unfortunate, but it sucks.
Yeah. But there you have it, guys. What are your thoughts? Do you use IGN reviews, or do you prefer coming up and taking a risk and trying watching movies or playing games for yourself and coming up with your own review? I think it's pretty obvious we are no longer fans of IGN, and they've fallen from grace in our eyes. But we'd love to hear from you guys. Did you see the movie? What are your thoughts on the movie? Was it good? Was it bad? Do you agree with IGN? Do you disagree with IGN? Let us know your thoughts. And make sure to check out all of our other episodes of the GZ Chop Shop podcast on our website, gzchopshoppodcast.com, where you can get every episode all in one place, or you can upload them to your favorite podcast player, whichever one you want to do. So make sure to go check it out. Anyway, that's all the time we've got for this episode. You guys have been amazing. Take care of yourself and each other, and we will catch all of you wonderful people on the next podcast.